What's up, y'all? Happy Juneteenth. I am simply here to read Sanya and Marlo. That's about all I got. I honestly have to go back and rewatch the episode because honestly, I've been ready to read Sanya since the interview with Carlos King posted. Like, I couldn't even really get into the episode. Like, I just had a read on my spirit. And then, of course, with the episode, Marlo's going to come in. It's going to be an additional read. So it's just like, but I'm going to get through the episode. Happy Juneteenth, y'all. And ciao. We start the episode off with Drew going to lunch with this like video guy who's gonna do the video for You Already Know. I will say, like, I'm not really feeling this storyline, but I do appreciate that they're like showcasing her music and whatever, because you know they do that for the other housewives, and I think they did a really good job at it for Candace on Potomac, and obviously it's the same producers, same production company, so cool, whatever. But I mean, I just thought it was funny, basically, when they sat down and she was just like, well, yeah, like, you know, the last big movie I did or whatever was The Step Up. And he's like, what's that?
Well, I had done Step Up at that time.
What's Step Up?
So I'm like, okay, like I wish that they would have prepped a little bit before this scene, but you know, whatever. And then the girls on Twitter were talking about the foreshadowing for the Drew and the Ralph story. I guess that's exciting because I said this a while ago. Like, you get these seasons, and I was worried that this was going to be one of those seasons where you get like this central beef slash storyline. They kind of just focus on that for the whole season. It's not necessarily giving that, praise God. So it seems like we're getting some stuff from every angle. It's building up really slowly, but it seems like we are getting some stuff from every angle. So thank God. And I guess this Drew and Ralph thing is gonna play in the background, and I guess they're foreshadowing. And you know, with the whole, like, they were talking, they were like, you know, if you can make it through 8 years, then you're good. I've never heard that before, but I'm also not married, and I'm also not invested in that ideology, so I don't really care. But sure, moving on. We then get to this scene where Sanya and Sheree are going out for the cryotherapy thing, whatever. Sheree is again, it just boggles my mind how Sheree thinks. Like, and I wish that we can get a production flashback. Like, the way that they did that montage with Kandi and Marlo last week, can they do that with Sheree? Because she obviously doesn't remember. Like, she's so hard pressed on Kandi talking about her business. But it's like, girl, before Kandi said anything about She by Sheree, you literally came on last season with Marlo talking mess about Kandi, talking about she done slept with everybody and she was giving head in the locker room. Like, you literally were going in on Kandi on this same show, last season before she said anything negative about She by Sheree. The reason that she's saying kiki funny things about She by Sheree, 2 reasons. She by Sheree is a read. 3 reasons. She by Sheree is a read. You're a read. And because you were trying to read her last season. So, turn it on! Like, girl, what are you talking about? But, okay. Honestly, I think she knows that. But her, Sanya, and Marlo have something in common where they, like, do this weird, goofy, silly stuff. And then they're like, why does everybody hate us? But we'll get into that. When she just did Watch What Happens Live, she said the same thing to Andy. Like, Andy's like, what's your tea with Kandi? And she's like, I don't even have tea with Kandi. Like, the only reason I'm coming for Kandi is because she came for me. And it's like, but that's not true. But okay, girl, whatever. Sheree's talking about how she wants things to be fun. I will say, I do like this direction or producing that they're doing for Sheree. I think that somebody sat her down and said, like, hey girl, we got to give you a role because you're not really doing much, you're not really giving much. And I love that they gave her like the role that she should have naturally took on. But whatever, sometimes we all need a little direction. But I love that she's now taking on the like OG role. I said this before, like, you're the OG, like, wrangle the girls, even if you're not really that good at it. I won't say whether she's good at it or not. But, you know, even if it's not really your strong suit, do it. Because you're the OG and you need a position on this show and you don't do anything else. You're most certainly not making She by Sheree. So you have time on your hands. So, yeah, try to pull the girls together. So I will say that I do like that this direction that they're going in with Sheree. And I like it. It works for me. This is another thing that triggered me. Like, I'm going to be doing a lot of sidetracking because I am just feeling some type of way. It just blows my mind that Sheree and Sanya can come together so often. They came together like 17 times in this episode alone to say like, "Oh my god, I want everything to be fun again." Like, I don't know why the girls can't have fun. The group is so divided. And it's so weird that they can have that type of conversation and articulate that there's an issue, but they can't take a step back and create some type of analysis as to where this issue is coming from. That is mind boggling to me. It's just like, if you think about why the group is divided, then you will understand that it's your homegirl Marlo that's doing the most, and she's doing it with y'all. It's not like it's happening, you guys have no idea it's happening. She's meeting up with y'all to make up issues with Drew, to make up issues with Kandi, to make up issues with Kenya, and then you're wondering why the group is divided. That's crazy to me. And then it's like, it's two of y'all there having this conversation. I would even give more grace if it was like Sonya was sitting at home or Sheree was sitting at home with a good book and she was pondering, like, why is the group so divided? Why is this happening? But it's two of them talking. There are two brains there having this conversation. Two brains, two sets of eyes, two bodies, two existences. Like, you've been there. You know what's going on. Both of you guys have firsthand knowledge. So I'm confused that this conversation never pushes itself further. Like, it's always just like, there's an issue in the group. But that's it. Like, the buck stops there. Knocking my mic over. I'm just upset. But even to go with the argument that Sanya's trying to make, because Sanya's also like, well, I feel like when Drew and Kenya took the story back to Kandi, they put some extra sauce on it. Marlo was hollering in Drew's face because Drew didn't attack Candy's restaurant the way that she wanted her to, because Drew didn't contribute to her story. And it's like, you always want to make these jokes and these digs at Drew, like, well, Drew wants to be an actress. You were begging her to act on your behalf, but because she didn't, now it's an issue. And then Sanya's talking about, oh, well, they took it back wrong. Are you kidding me? Like, I need, if I had to do it myself, like, I damn near might. I need a montage of every single thing that Marlo has said about Kandi this season alone. 7 episodes in. I need a montage of everything that she said. And then please tell me that the way that Kandi is taking this is irrational. Please tell me that it's misdirected. Please tell me that the way that it was delivered from Kenya and Drew is not accurate. Please tell me that. Please. I would like to see it. They want to fix the issue. Sheree has decided to have this Gucci brunch, which I think is fun. I said last episode, like, I hadn't thought about it. Maybe I'm not good producer material. But yeah, if the girls are beefing, please continue. Like, honestly, if I was filming a show, now that I'm thinking about it, and the girls have started beefing and I'm starting to see those dynamics, it's giving group event every week, maybe twice a week. Because it's like, we got to keep bringing the girls back together because things are hot and things are spicy. And I think that they hit that point now, and I'm excited. So I'm enjoying the show. So yes, let's have a group event. Great. We fast forward to Marlo having lunch with Courtney. They are really pushing Courtney through this television screen. But what I will say is, the more that she's filmed, the more calmed down she feels. I think because Courtney obviously is naturally on the op side of things. She's been hanging out more with the Marlos and the Sherees and the Sanyas. And I think that she is seeing the foolishness, to be honest with you. She is still doing some justification like those other silly women are. But I think she's seeing it. So I think she's kind of taking a step back, and it's making her so much more likable. The only reason I wrote this down is because I was cringing when Marlo asked this man to make them margaritas in a wine glass. It's just like, it gave ice in the wine. Like, if you know, you know. It literally was giving like ice cubes in my red wine. It gave Marlo. It seemed consistent. I hated it. And even when Courtney came in and she clocked it with her QT, and that's the gag. Like, talk about foreshadowing. The gag is, she was the one calling Kandi ghetto, or Kandi's fan base ghetto, since we want to mince words. And then she's drinking margaritas out of a wine glass. I really liked all of the scenes this episode so that we can see the dynamics and the conversations. This one I've been looking forward to, baby. Like Sanya meeting up with Kandi so Kandi can get into Sanya's, like, excellent. Kandi said all the right things. I'm gonna have to segue in the whole Carlos King thing. I really wanted to do a separate video, but I just don't really have that in me. I just don't feel like sitting here screaming. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. They're having lunch, and Candy's just letting her know, like, I'm about to be done messing with you and your homegirls because there's just too much going on. And at the end of the day, what's blowing my mind all around, like all the way around my mind, is blown at every single angle and every single axis, is that people are almost intentionally missing the point of what Candy's saying because it's impossible not to recognize what she's saying. I think it's impossible on so many different levels because, but most importantly, because we've seen Marlo on this show for 35 years and nothing about her has changed. So we know exactly how Marlo is. So nothing that Kandi is saying is new. And it's not as if we haven't seen the physical evidence of Marlo doing these things. So it's just insane to me that people are coming up with these ideas and this new debate where it's like basically what people gathered from this clip, because the clip dropped first on Twitter as like a preview for the episode. You know, they do 13 previews per episode. And the clip dropped where Kandi was holding Sanya accountable and she said, girl, you ride the fence at the end of the day. And I immediately went to the comments and everybody's talking about, well, Kandi wants Sanya to pick her side. Nobody ever said that, especially not Kandi. Nobody ever said that. And it is so crazy that people are literally, it's like they turned off this side of their brain just so that they purposely could not see the writings on the wall and they're just using this part. Whichever part works less is the one that people are choosing to use. Because it's like, what Kandi is saying is, and y'all know this, so it really hurts me to have to explain this, but I guess that's why we're here. What Kandi is saying is you're riding the fence because, as I just referenced, y'all keep wanting to talk about there's a divide in the group, there's an issue, but you're not taking that step back, that necessary step to have an analysis to say, oh, Marlo is the issue. Like, why is that lost on us and why can't we say that? Because we all know that. So I'm with Kandi. Why are you choosing not to say that? So at the end of the day, because Sanya and Sheree are trying to make up this BS as well, I guess that's why y'all are running with it. They're like, well, Kandi just wants us to pick her side and blah 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 blah. You know that that's not true. At the end of the day, the issue is that you keep trying to make this narrative where it's like, oh, I'm not choosing a side. I want to be with all the girls. You're lying. You've already chosen a side. And it's been stated 17 times in this episode, praise God. At the end of the day, what happens is there will be an issue or a misunderstanding. Sheree's favorite word. We're definitely going to get to that as well. A misunderstanding between Marlo and somebody else. And Sanya and Sheree put on their cape. And they're like, well, no, 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 no. Like, I know that Marlo insulted you and she was incredibly nasty and she said all these terrible things about you. But what she meant was she's hurt. And it's like, we ain't doing that no more. Marlo is a grown woman. Like, at the end of the day, what y'all are asking us to do is to give Marlo grace. At the end of the day, when she's insulting people and saying nasty things about people and quite blatantly, like Kandi said, attaching her name to murder. Like, she's literally walking around this cast, this season, talking about how terrible Candy's character is, and Kandi did this and Kandi did this. But now they want to interpret it and say, but no, she really just means that she's hurt. And that's what Candy's trying to get her to understand. Like, that, none of that is lost on Kandi. I hope that they don't think Kandi doesn't see that. Like, I see what y'all are talking about. I hear everything that y'all are talking about. The issue is that y'all are riding on this fence intentionally because you know that all of these issues are coming from Marlo. You know that it's an issue the way that Marlo communicates and attacks people because she's feeling some type of way. Whenever Marlo is in her feelings, she attacks and she says stupid stuff and she does stupid stuff. And y'all are expecting for us to always be the bigger person and let Marlo do whatever she does because she's insecure at the end of the day. And so you think that we're supposed to cater to her because she's not comfortable with herself and she just wants to fit in. She's a pick me girl. We're way too old for that. Way too old in years and way too old in seasons. We've been seeing Marlo do this forever. So, and Sanya, girl, you just stepped off the bus. So it's so crazy for you to even come in trying to make that type of assessment, but you can't even be honest and say that Marlo is the issue. That drives me insane. So that's all Kandi is saying, and y'all know that again, but I'm sitting here explaining it. Like, they're riding the fence, and y'all that are trying to rationalize what Marlo does, you're also riding the fence for two, either one of two reasons. You don't like Kandi, so you just want to be adversarial, or you just think that there's this world where Marlo needs so much grace. You live in this world that Sanya, Sheree, and Marlo live in, where you just don't take accountability. You're just expecting grace and grace and grace and grace and grace. Go to church, because I don't have that much grace in me. At the end of the day, you need to take accountability and stop being an asshole. Marlo is an asshole. Y'all know that. Everybody knows that. That's not lost on anybody. She may also be sweet. Those two things can be true. Both of those things can be true. I'm sure there are days when Marlo is sweet, but she's also an asshole. So stop acting like, oh, well, we need to interpret and read between the lines with Marlo, and when she's hurt, let's rub her back, even though she's insulting us at the same time. We're done with that. It just blows me that even in this conversation, and they even had a cry moment, because at this point, I'm glad that Kandi was kind of like giving some backstory and explaining to Sanya why she's not like, super lovey-dovey and like affectionate as a friend. And that's what I appreciated, because I do appreciate being able to take a step back and see it from somebody else's perspective. And I feel like what Kandi was doing in that instance was like, okay, so in the event that Marlo is hurt, because I do agree Marlo is hurt, that's not lost on anybody. So in the event that we're going to focus on that and say Marlo's hurt, let's act this way, let me explain to you why I don't communicate like that as a friend. Kandi still did her part to get that out and have that type of a grown-up conversation. She didn't owe Marlo that, because at that point Marlo had already been an asshole. But she still took her time to have that conversation and explain that to Sanya. So they have this conversation. I'm thinking that Sanya had to have gotten some great context out of that. Like, hello, this is where this lady is coming from. And still, Sanya wasn't able to take a step back and do the same thing that Kandi just did and see it from a different perspective and say, you know what, you're right. Yes, Marlo is hurt, and yes, we can agree on that, but we should also be able to agree that she's being an asshole. She can't do that. She's choosing not to do it. And that's where Kandi's issue is coming in. Kandi ain't never asked nobody to be on her side. It's giving, girl, you talk about you're not playing sides, but you are. You justify and you downplay everything that Marlo does. But then you want to walk around like, there's an issue. Kenya and Kandi, please fix it. No. No. Get your homegirl together. Like, that's so weird to me. That blew me. I mean, I think that it was, I'm not even gonna say it was a good conversation. It was a good scene. It was amazing to see, and I'm glad that Kandi was holding Sanya accountable and telling her about herself and letting her know what was going on. But it was just irritating to still not see any growth in Sanya from having this conversation. Like, Sanya, just be real. You chosen a side. You want to be more gracious and more so on Marlo's side, cool, whatever. But that's also weird to me, because last season, Marlo and Sheree were on your ass. Marlo doesn't even know how to say your name still. Let's start there. Let's take it a step back. But they were both on your ass last year calling you a flip-flopper. It's not one person on this cast that hasn't called you a flip-flopper. So is it like where this blind loyalty came from? I'm just not sure, but whatever, Sanya, girl, go off. I want to talk about the casting thing with Sanya. I'm gonna hold it towards the end. Even at the same time, though, they're cutting back to the scene with Courtney and Marlo, and the only thing that I highlighted here was at least Courtney. This over, it felt so produced, like somebody had held up the phone and was like, "Say this," and Courtney was reading like, "Why didn't you tell Kandi earlier?" And Marlo's BS excuses, "Well, I haven't seen her." It's been years, sis. You haven't seen her? You guys filmed this TV show together. She also did Kandi Speak on it. They also had BravoCon. Like, girl, you see her all the time. You see her all the time. I'm confused. The better question would have been, why are you reading her to everybody, but then trying to go to her and say, well, I'm hurt, sis. Please understand me. I am your sister. Support me. No, you're talking. You're weird. We're back around to Drew. I don't really even know why I wrote this down. I think I was just trying to keep the episode in order, but Drew is doing her video shoot. I guess it's more foreshadowing, but it's also stuff I don't care about. I like Drew, but I just don't care. We then get to the scene with Kenya, and she's at the doctor, and she's talking about having another child. I think that this is good personal story. And from what Candy said on Speak On It, she said like this is a real thing that Kenya's trying to figure out. I think the topic here obviously is like being like separated from your old partner or estranged from your old partner that you had a previous child with, but still wanting to have children with that person, even though y'all don't necessarily have a relationship. I can't 100% speak on that because I'm not a woman. I can't have children, and I'm also not Kenya Moore. But I can understand her saying, I already have these embryos, right? Like, I've already done all this work and I have these embryos, and guess what? They're with Mark. So why would I get rid of them at the end of the day? It just kind of is what it is. And also, yeah, like I don't want to have multiple kids with multiple men. That's her prerogative. I don't really see an issue with that mindset at all because I understand it. Would I necessarily want to have more kids with Mark? No. Do I think she necessarily wants to have more kids with Mark? No. But that's the situation that she's in, and either, the devil that you know or the devil that you don't. So she might as well use the embryos that she has. I don't know if that's such a big debate for anybody, but I'm touching on it because it was an episode. We finally get to the Gucci brunch, lunch thing, whatever. I thoroughly enjoyed this scene. I thought it was great. And it really just had me hollering. Like, I just don't want to go on another rant, but we're just back. I'll start at the beginning. I did appreciate the fact, again, I like this edit and direction of Sheree where she's trying to lead the group and get us to get along and woo up the bam, blah, 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 blah. So I did like that. I thought that the conversations were good. I think that Kandi came in with a good attitude. I had noted that. I like that Kandi was able to have a grown up conversation with Courtney. I still don't think they're going to be homegirls, but I think they had a grown up conversation. They both acknowledged some positive things about, their interactions with each other since that silly fight from the beginning of the season. So I thought that that was good, and I appreciated that. We get to Sanya and Kenya, and I'm glad that Kenya laid it out. And I even said I love Kenya, but I wanted Kenya to be a little bit more invested when it came to filming with the girls because it feels very like this all the time, which is understandable. But I do want to acknowledge that we are working. So I'm so glad that Kenya was ready to work today for sure. But I think Kenya's always ready to work as it pertains to Sanya and Marlo, quiet as it's kept. Because at the end of the day, like, Sanya girl, and she honestly kept it easy on Sanya. She even let her get all of that BS out where she's just like, I feel like we're working on a friendship and blah, 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 blah. Girl, you're full of it. I don't trust you, as Kenya said, which is a nice way of putting it. You're a flip flopper and you do weird stuff. And I think it's valid that Kenya's like, girl, you're saying that we're friends and you called me and all this good stuff, but then you go and watch What Happens Live and you're kikiing about my butt. And then you're doing that weird thing. They even all joined in, Beavis and Butthead. They're all like knocking heads against each other for this silly argument of like, well, we don't know your butt is real. That's all she said. Like, we don't know if your butt is real. Like, it's not a big deal. That's all she said. No, she's trying to be funny. She's on Watch What Happens Live. She got asked a shady question because that's what happens on Watch What Happens Live. And she gave a shady answer by saying, well, when Marlo does bring it up, in the shady ways that Marlo is bringing it up, she's like, then you do have to look at it. And it's like, well, I don't know if it's real. That's a shady answer. At the end of the day, you didn't just simply say, I don't know. That's not what you said. So stop acting like you weren't being shady. That's so weird to me to be a grown person and throw shade and do stuff and not have any type of self-awareness or accountability about yourself. Like, those are the worst qualities that Sanya, Sheree, and Marlo share. It's like they share that quality together. It's like it binds them. Y'all know the three, I don't remember what they were. Y'all ever seen Hercules, the animated movie? And they were like those three things, and they had that eyeball that they shared. You remember that? That's what they feel like. I'm going to post it. That's what they feel like. Those three, like that little eyeball that they share and pass back and forth, that's literally Marlo, Sanya, and Sheree's rationale. They pass it back and forth between each other. It's weird. I'm also very glad that they didn't let Marlo get it out. Like, typically, I would agree with, let her talk, blah, blah, blah. But Marlo's spewing BS. And as soon as she started talking, that's literally one of the starter kits for not having accountability is what Marlo did. As soon as she started talking, she threw Drew under the bus. And she's like, well, I'm not the one that brought up the shooting incident. That was Drew. Girl.
First of all, I didn't even bring up the shooting at your restaurant. Drew brought that up. When that came up, it just struck something. When I heard
You've already messed up. And now Drew is in it. Because Drew was sitting there quiet. And now Drew's in it. And you're like, well, Drew, let me talk. No, girl, you just literally threw out some. You just made that up. Like, you literally just threw Drew in it, so now she's in it. And I wouldn't be letting you talk either. Like, that's BS. Because you're like, well, Drew brought it up. You wanted her to bring it up. And the reason that y'all had this whole argument is because she didn't use the word like you wanted her to. You literally wanted Drew to make this a thing to get a part of your beef with Kandi. And now you're trying to act like, well, that wasn't even my intention. Like, I didn't bring up that. I didn't bring up the guy at the restaurant. I wasn't trying to say that Kandi had anything to do with it. Yes, you were. You've said it several times. And your story has continuously changed. You are lying. Like, what are you talking about? She literally, the first couple words that came out of her mouth, she messed up. You messed up. So now Drew is in it. So I don't fault Drew for not letting her talk. Kenya, even Kandi said this, like, that don't have nothing to do with Kandi. Kenya and Marlo have never seen eye to eye. Never. And they already just had conflict when Marlo was kicking on her door 2 weeks ago. So it's like, girl, like, you're full of it. I've seen you be full of it as well. Like, I don't see it for you, so I'm not letting you talk either. Like, I love when Kenya is on Marlo's neck. Please don't ever get up off of her neck. Because, yes, girl, that's all BS.
Kenya just don't like you, okay? Kenya just don't like Marlo, so every chance she get, she gonna hit her with a 1-2.
Bitch, like, I need your respect out of all the people here.
And then we get Kandi in there because this is Kandi's present issue. So that's another thing. Like, y'all are choosing to run with this narrative of like, oh, well, Drew and Kenya are like Kandi's lapdogs and her puppets and they speak for her. Like, what? Like, when Sheree said that, it's like, Sheree, what do you think that you and Sanya are doing for Marlo? What do you think you guys are doing? What do you think you guys are doing? You're asking all of us in front of God to give Marlo so much grace to just be an asshole because she has feelings. Effie, we all got pain. Like, girl, no, nobody wants to hear that. No, like, everybody should be pushing back and should be holding her accountable because y'all aren't. Like, y'all are not holding her accountable. I don't know what conversations y'all have outside of the group, but they're not productive at all. They don't make sense. Y'all are not holding her accountable. I don't want to hear that. Don't come to me now talking about, well, Marlo's hurt and this is what she meant. I don't want to hear that. Just like Kandi told Sanya, like, I don't want to hear that. We're not talking about what the real issue is.
Don't be, I don't want to hear it.
The real issue is that Marlo is an asshole. And she started all of this, so I'm glad that she's getting all of this heat. This is the second time that Marlo has filmed a group scene from outside the venue. Like, as soon as they get on Marlo, as soon as real people start trying to give her accountability, she runs out of the doors. Like, are y'all not seeing this? The Marlo stands, like, y'all don't see this? Every time Marlo gets a little heat, she runs. It was crazy to me that she even had to have Sheree direct Kenya to be quiet. And Kenya was just so gracious. We're giving grace. Kenya was so gracious enough to say, fine, I won't say anything because Marlo couldn't take it. That's crazy. You do all this woofing behind the girls' backs, and now when you're in front of them and it's time for you to give that same energy, you don't give that same energy. You ain't saying what you said before. And then you want grace, and then you don't want everybody to say nothing at the same time. You don't want to be held accountable, even though you're physically dragging them into it. You're always starting stuff with Drew, Kenya, and Kandi, separately and together. And now you don't want to be addressed. Now it's too much. Now Kenya is disrespectful. She couldn't take it. I loved it. I will rewatch that scene until the end of time. Because yes, get on her. Like, no, girl, you can't talk. We don't want to hear that BS. Get out of here. And then even your road dog, Sheree, she's over here kikiing with Kenya. While Kenya is like choking on the BS. She's kikiing with her. Even Sanya had to say, Sheree, that's not even cool that you're doing that. Yeah, because it's not your homegirl. That's how Sheree gets down. Welcome to the show. That's how Sheree gets down. We all know that. But you're over there trying to link up with Marlo and Sheree. You look so silly. Like, it's just so silly that, like, listen, Marlo and Grace, they just don't go together. She's not getting any grace from me. She's not getting any leeway from me. And she's not getting it from the girls. I'm glad that she's not. She doesn't deserve it. And she did this last season. Even when she was talking all that mess with Sheree. Sheree got off easy last season. Because she was with Marlo the whole time talking mess. When Marlo got to the reunion, she was a mouse. She had nothing to say. Nothing to say. Playing it cute. So now she's doing that same thing. Like, girl, you're not even able to do it in front of the group. Now you're in front of the group and you don't have nothing to say. Now you quiet. And you really can't even take it from Drew. You read Drew the most. And Drew got you up in a hissy. Like, you can't even get a word in. And you're upset because you invited her to that argument. You mentioned her name. You never should have said anything about her. You think Kenya's going to let you speak? Yeah, right. And Kandi, definitely not. So this whole narrative of them teaming up is BS at the end of the day. Marlo attacks each and every one of them. She starts with each and every one of them all the time. And now y'all don't want them to address her and give her back the same energy. Get the hell out of here. So I do want to briefly touch on Sanya's interview with Carlos. I didn't live at all. I was very disappointed. I even because I watch Carlos videos. I like Carlos, and typically I feel like you can expect Carlos to ask, he says it. He's like, I ask the questions that the people want to hear. It's no shade, it's no tea. He didn't ask Sanya anything of substance at all. Honestly, what I was thinking was, is Carlos doing some backstage producing of Atlanta this season? Because it just feels like that interview was to start mess, which kudos, cute. But it felt like it was just to get Sanya to say something dumb. Like, I think that he knew that Sanya was the one to do something silly like that. Like, DJ Richie Scott said that, like, make rookie mistakes. He knew that Sanya was going to do that, and he wanted to get it amped up. Like, I feel like Carlos is on payroll for this season. Because the fact that he even has said in the past, I don't know if he's used the words particularly, but he's definitely alluded to the fact that Sanya is a flip-flopper. Abso-freaking-lutely. So it's weird that he would have her on her show. He would have her on his show and not ask her about that, because he literally just had Mayetta on and he was asking Mayetta about all the stuff everybody says about her, like, oh, well, you're Candy's puppet and da-da-da-da. And he's supposed to be friends with Mayetta. So if you can ask Mayetta that stuff, why you not asking Sanya that? He had Sanya on there asking Sanya what the cast should be. Sanya shouldn't even be on the cast. That made no sense at all. The internet is literally saying, why is Sanya here? And you're asking Sanya to come up with a cast for a show that we don't even really want to see her on. And he knows that. So I think that Carlos was doing it on purpose. I even tweeted him, I'm like, Carlos, you was not asking the question that needs to be asked. And literally every 2 minutes of the video, I was wanting to get in the comments and go in on Sanya. Because I couldn't, she does that same thing, like what she did on Watch What Happens Live about the Kenya's booty comment. Like, she says this shady stuff, but then tries to act like, oh, no tea, no shade. Like, you don't even have the right to say anything shady about anybody on this cast. Who are you? Like, what do you bring to the... She asked her, do you know why Mayetta's on the show? Do we know why Sanya's on the show? She doesn't fit in with the group at all. She's trying to fit in, but she doesn't. So, does Sanya know why Sanya's on the show before she's commenting about Mayetta? We need Mayetta way before we need Sanya. So, girl, I know you lying. And then to even say that she would get rid of Kenya and Kandi because she's filmed with them before, but then she's talking about she wants to film with the Phaedras. And girl, you don't even know that lady. Just like Kandi said, girl, you're a fan of these people. You don't even know them people. And you talking about you want to get on a show with them. They would eat you up. Those aren't the generous girls. The way that Kenya and Kandi are acting, you need to be happy. Kandi even said it on Speak On It. She's like, I be trying to be cool and not get into it with the girls too much and not read them too much. She said, but girl, keep playing with me, keep going. Talking about Sanya, like, girl, you're honestly, you're getting it sweet. You really are. So it's crazy that you get on these interviews and stuff and you're woofing and you're trying to be funny and you're trying to be cute. But nobody's living for you at all. And even on top of that, I will say, Kandi said this last night as well on Speak On It, which I loved. I wouldn't change this cast. I wouldn't. What I've been waiting for is dynamics, and now that we're getting this stuff and this type of footage and this type of energy, this type of back and forth, we're finally getting those dynamics. I feel like we're finally starting to see where the group is. It's finally starting to feel like a group because there are group dynamics. They don't like each other and there's a divide, but there's a group there. There's a dynamic there. And at this point, all you need to do is add. I wouldn't subtract anybody. Do I think that Sanya serves a purpose on the show? For dynamics, yes. In terms of being Sanya, hell no. In terms of having her own opinion, hell no. But she adds dynamics. She's like a polarizing character. At the end of the day, like her and Marlo and Sheree, you need people like that on your cast so that people can have different opinions about you, can create a conversation. You need that for TV shows. So although they're ridiculous and they only share one brain and one opinion and one rationale, you need that on the show. And so, yeah, I would keep the cast exactly how it is. Exactly how it is. And I would just add from there. And I think it'll be a great show. I think they're doing a good job already. I'm I still have so much more that I really want to just jump into about the Marlo and the Sheree and the Sanya of it all, but I know that they're only going to get even more ridiculous, so I'm just going to let it trickle out. And then maybe one day I'll do a video like fully about casting. I'm still upset with Carlos. I am excited to see his review of this episode because, like I said, I like Carlos, but I'm mad at him because he know goddamn well what he was doing with that Sanya interview, opening up the door for her to be shady, knowing goddamn well ain't no room around Sanya to be shady. Ain't no type of elbow room for Sanya to be shading anybody on that cast. Girl. I thought the episode was really good. I think we're getting into our groove now. And like I said, it's the dynamics of it all. I love that. They need to keep the group scenes. I know we also have a group trip coming up. Unfortunately, it's to Portugal. Like I said, they always do the same events, same trips for these housewives shows. But girl, whatever. We'll get to that when we get to that. But I'm enjoying it. I really like this episode. I'm sick of Sanya. I'm sick of Marlo. Sheree, girl, I'm holding on. But yeah, I'll see y'all next time.